Hello and welcome to News in Depth on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. A controversial new body championed by US President Donald Trump is rapidly taking shape. The proposed Board of Peace, initially designed to govern post-war Gaza, may evolve into a global conflict management forum, even a parallel to the United Nations. With invitations reportedly sent to more than 60 leaders and membership potentially costing billions, the initiative is raising diplomatic, legal and geopolitical questions. In addition, Poland has been asked to choose between two sides in a way that has exposed the contradiction at the heart of its grand security strategy. To explain why, we're joined by Stuart Dowell, he's political editor at TVP World. Stuart, welcome back. Great to have you as always.
Good to be here.
So, what is this Board of Peace? Talk us through the basics.
Well, as you said in your introduction, it's what's billed as being a conflict management forum, but based on the peace that was achieved in Gaza, and that's kind of what gives it a little bit of additional legitimacy. That there's already a United Nations decision appointing this body,
the Gaza body.
This international
the Board of Peace in general.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And many analysts and commentators and politicians are kind of sceptical about it because they're suggesting that it could be Trump's way of replacing international institutions like the United Nations, which we know that he's been very critical of in the past.
Well, and there may be good reason for being critical of the UN, but nonetheless, it does have the scent of being a unilateral action by Donald Trump. Not only because he's the only one that seems to have decided who's going to be on the Board of Peace, but also he's asking he's specifying how much each country should invest in the Board of Peace, and if they don't, well, he's threatening them with all sorts of nasties. I mean, that doesn't sound particularly democratic as a process, does it?
No, it's not, and probably that's a good way to describe it, because the whole venture is moving away from the rules-based system. The idea is to move away from the rules-based system that we've had around the world up to now. I think to understand where it comes from, we have to go back to the post-Second World War settlement and see what was in it for America. After the war, America was the dominant hegemon, the dominant power. It wanted to project its power around the world, and the way it did that was to build the international system, starting through security with NATO, the Bretton Woods Agreement, which later became World Trade Organization for trade, also the primacy of the dollar, the United Nations for political legitimacy, and that's what it gave America. It allowed America to exercise its raw power, but it legitimized it.
Yeah,
and just to finish that. That worked for a long time. It even brought down the Soviet Union, and the people who were happy with that system thought it could go on and on post Cold War. But what nobody predicted was the rise of China, and what America First, the ideology behind Trump's administration says, is that that system is not fit to meet the challenge of China, and America needs to withdraw from a system where, as Donald Trump says, it pays but doesn't get the decisions that it wants.
Yes, well, then that does rather beg the question, what is the reason for having this Board of Peace? Is it simply to further Trump's agenda, or is there some more global benefit or advantage to being on this organisational board?
Well, for being on the board, for being the other countries, I think the There are probably advantages for different types of countries. I think there are definitely advantages for politically isolated countries like Belarus, for example, which is one of the first countries to say that it's going to be on that board. It's already outside the international system, so this is a great way for it to gain legitimacy and access to some of the benefits, which may be better in Belarusian case, more sanctions relief, trade deals, maybe access to weapons. I'm not sure whether that's really the case in Belarus's case. Similar things apply to Russia. Then there's another category of country, for example, the illiberal democracies that we have in Europe. We saw that Viktor Orban from Hungary was also a quick out at the starting gates to agree to be on the board. The problem is with the medium-sized countries. That's where Poland comes in. I
want to talk about Poland in just a second, actually, but before we get to that, 60 countries, let's assume they all sign up. They paid their dues for permanent membership. And now one of the criticisms of the United Nations has been that they find it very difficult to make any kind of decisions. I mean, how much easier is it going to be for 60 countries on the board of peace to make a decision? Are we simply replacing one slow-moving behemoth for another?
I don't think so. I think that the idea that the criticism from America of the United Nations is its multilateralism. It means that smaller countries, medium-sized countries, kind of get more out of it than their weight really deserves. They can form coalitions, they can block, occasionally veto, they can put things on the agenda. But the country that stands behind it all, America, with all its power, according to the American First, feels that it's not getting the maximum benefit from that power. And then the other powers, Russia and China, kind of treat the international system as an option. When it suits them, they agree to the rules, and then they do whatever they want when not. We see with Russia in Ukraine.
So there's, I mean, they might simply continue doing that on the board of peace, mightn't they?
Yeah, and we have multilateralism in the United Nations, but this new body will be bilateral. Simply mean people describe it as a hub and spoke mechanism. That the centre is the United States, it's the hub, and it basically tells the spokes what to do. So no, it's not. It probably won't be a forum for debate and reaching decisions and having small coalitions and different parts of the organisation. It's therefore for Donald Trump to impose his will, and the statute of the organisation is available. It gives the chair, Donald Trump, huge discretion over who's a member, he can stop countries being a member when they're already a member. He gets to decide on the agenda. He gets to veto decisions simply if he doesn't agree with them. He'll also be a member, the chair after his presidency, which I think is very significant and important, possibly for life if he wants it. And he also gets to choose his successor. So it's basically the Donald Trump organisation.
Right, OK. So, there's a lot to be said on that, but I'd like to move on because Poland, of course, is one of the countries that has been invited to join the Board of Peace. And in your recent analysis, you pointed out that actually leaves Poland in a bit of a bind, doesn't it? Talk us through that.
Yeah, because Poland, it's interesting that just in the last week, Poland has been faced with two difficult questions on its security that it hasn't had to face in the last 35 years. The first was when it was asked by European partners if it would like to go to Greenland with them and join in with their military training mission, as they called it, kind of a deterrence mission, albeit on a very small scale. And Poland had previously signed the joint declaration supporting the rules-based order, but didn't send even one officer. So it hedged, basically. And then a few days later, it was asked on the other side, well, do you want to come to our club, our billionaires club, which wants to break that international rules-based order. It hasn't given its answer yet, but it puts Poland in a very difficult position because Poland's grand security strategy is based on two elements. One is the security guarantee from the raw, hard American power, and the second element is the kind of institutional safety it gets within international organisations. The safety of laws that said that borders can't be crossed, that sovereignty is inviolable, etc. Now that system is the last 35 years for Poland have been like a Goldilocks period where those two systems overlapped. Now they're breaking apart, crumbling, and so what's Poland going to do?
Right. So, I mean, absolutely. And actually, there is a third dimension to what you've just explained. There's a short soundbite I'd like to share with you in the audience. I'll get your view on it.
Donald Trump nowadays is only one leader who can solve this problem, and we have to support him in this process. You know, we in Poland, we don't know different Russia than aggressive Russia.
Stany Zjednoczone są gwarantem polskiego bezpieczeństwa.
The United States is the guarantor of Poland's security. We are a model ally, and this has often been emphasized in my conversations with U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. I have heard this in Warsaw, in Washington, at the Pentagon, and in Brussels. Poland is mentioned first as a model ally, and nothing is changing in this regard. There is no guarantee of security for NATO and Europe without the United States, and there is no strength for the United States without its presence in NATO. There are no plans to not just maintain a U.S. troop presence in Poland, but to actually increase that footprint. We are building Fort Trump in Bolesławiec in Poland's lower Silesia region, and together with the Americans, we are also modernizing the airport in Wrocław, which is set to becoming the primary transshipment base for American troops in Europe. Our role in NATO as the third largest army after the U.S. and Turkey is growing, so it's safe to say that ties between Warsaw and Washington remain strong.
Turcji wzrasta, więc relacje polsko-amerykańskie są silne.
And that, of course, he's talking about the threat of Putin being in the same bubble, if you like, of this board of peace. And both the Prime Minister and President are speaking with one voice here. What options does Poland have?
It has... It's a dilemma for Poland. It's a dilemma particularly for President Karol Nawrocki. I think this is the first major, it's not a crisis, but a very, very difficult decision that he's got to make. So far in his presidency, he's travelled to visit aligned partners. He's gone out to set out his positions in different forums, but this is much different. I think what we'll see is a similar approach to the response to the Greenland issue. You could call it strategic ambiguity. For sure, Karol Nawrocki would like to join the organisation, but of course, it's probably impossible to do that while Vladimir Putin is going to be president as well. Although some commentators have mentioned that Poland was very happy to be invited to join the G20. Russia is also in the G20 and it's likely to have its representatives at a G20 meeting, which Poland would like to participate in.
All right. See, because there's one thing that, I mean, what Trump has said is that any country that is invited and refuses to join may be subject to tariffs. Now, that doesn't actually bother Poland terribly much because it doesn't export much to the US. So it's got relatively little to use. Bearing that in mind and bearing this ambiguity that the government is facing, what options do you think it has? I mean, does it just kind of keep going ahead doing nothing much?
Donald Tusk pointed out that in order to join an international organisation, there has to be agreement of the government. The government sets foreign policy, and the president implements it, and also has to signing an international treaty, which kind of joining an international organisation represents. requires agreement from the lower house. So even if Karol Nawrocki would want to join it, there are barriers to him doing that. That kind of, in a sense, could give Karol Nawrocki
cover.
Cover, a way out.
Yeah.
Whether that really would be convincing in Washington, you could say that's unlikely, because we know that Donald Trump doesn't like those kind of constitutional rules, and why would he accept that from one of his partners? So I think we'll see, like a lot of countries are doing at the moment, hesitancy, signalling of further talks, considerations, and of course the demand or request demands that Trump made that everything has to be done by Thursday when he comes to Davos is completely unrealistic.
Right. Now, Poland isn't the only country that's facing a dilemma. The other, of course, is France, and here you see President Trump threatening France with tariffs on champagne and cheese, that is imported from France into the United States. Talk us through the French position.
Well, very different to Poland. Poland has a huge security dilemma because of its location with Russia. France's geostrategic position is to preserve at all costs its strategic autonomy, to be able to act freely, and its alliances in NATO and the European Union allow it to do that. What it doesn't want to do is become trapped in a bilateral relationship, which essentially getting close to the United States in this form is suggesting in the longer term, and that traditionally doesn't suit France's outlook. So it's no surprise that Macron was the first to outright refuse. I saw Trump's comments about the cheese and the wine and champagne. I got the impression he was being flippant and just speaking off the top of his head. But we never know with Trump. Sometimes these things actually become policy, don't they?
Well, absolutely. And the other thing is, of course, that he makes lots of threats, and a relatively small portion of those actually are implemented, especially with the levels of tariffs that he originally threatens. Now, I'm just trying to visualize. You mentioned the hub and spoke model, the structure. I'm just trying to visualize Putin and I don't know, Nawrocki or Macron sitting around this wheel. How does conversation happen? How do decisions get made? How do solutions get formed?
I think the thing to say at the moment is nobody knows, because there's so much ambiguity about this whole project that everyone or the majority of countries are hedging and asking for more details. Suggesting that they're going to conduct consultations with their American partners. That's what the Russians said exactly. My feeling is that the way it will work in practice, if it ever gets going, is simply Donald Trump laying down the law and saying how things will be, and the partners may agree for the benefits that access to power gives them. Right.
The other interesting thing of note is that Gaza seems to have gone into the background. The original foundation, if you like, for setting this thing up seems to be less important than it used to be. Do you think this was part of a Trump plan, or is it just the way it worked out? You know, he woke up one morning and said, "How about a board of peace this week?"
No, I think it is part of not necessarily a Trump plan, but a broader America First plan to introduce this idea into the space, and to piggyback on the back of the peace board that was set up for Gaza. And even people are suggesting that the issue, the demands in Greenland, are also. I mean, we kind of know that they're not really about bases and minerals because they already have that, but. It could be a tool to destroy this international order.
Absolutely. Well, it certainly seems to be going that way. Stuart, unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there. But as always, thank you so much for your analysis. And that brings us to the end of this episode of News in Depth. Don't go away, lots more coming up. Goodbye.